outlines of that campaign are being sketched. And I draw your attention to two things. First, on the front page of the Observer this morning, the Observer newspaper, it says, Port Royal boost. Water upgrade paves way for major economic transformation, says PM. And there's a photograph of the Prime Minister turning on the $500 million water improvement system for the town and its people, the town of Port Royal, a historic place in Jamaica that we have not been able to really leverage. It's rich, and some may say sordid history to provide economic benefits to the people of Port Royal. But the facts are, it is full of potential for many Jamaicans. Yeah, Port Royal is a place to go for some fun, for some other extracurricular activities. Yes, nocturnal activities included. Yes, if you're in the corporate area, just east of Harborview, or wherever you are in the corporate area, and you are looking a place to go that is safe, yes, to steal away for a moment or two. Port Royal, why are you laughing at me, Kevin? It's true. Port, Port Royal is a place to go. Yeah? The road to Port Royal, you just go along that strip from the roundabout at Harborview. Yeah? Straight into Port Royal. And you will see Jamaicans stealing love. Yeah? The town is abuzz with restaurants, eateries. Yeah? You can go and have some nice fish. Gloria's come to mind. Very famous place in Port Royal. Yeah? There's a hotel in Port Royal as well. Yeah? So you don't have to resort to Greenfield Hotel. Yeah? If your pocket is Port Hotel, that is in Port Royal. But the point I'm making, the Prime Minister was in Port Royal yesterday, commissioning this $500 million water improvement system.
One set of footprint in this can.
And his administration has been very deliberate in making several investments in Port Royal because they're seeking to transform it into another destination in Jamaica for the people of Port Royal and for visitors to Jamaica and the citizens of Jamaica who can get to Port Royal in half an hour. And this investment didn't start yesterday, didn't start earlier this year, several years ago. And the point I'm making, you're going to see now, between now and D-Day, the Prime Minister and the government doing more of these because it's an election year. So it's all timed to prime the economy and, of course, to encourage voters. So the management of the economy and the deliverables of the wholeness economy, and I say wholeness economy because he has been presiding over the economy for the last, nearly 10 years, 8, 9 years now. So it's his economy, yeah? And it's one of the key political selling points of the Holness administration in making its
Yeah, so
case for
we're
that
going to listen to Cliff Hughes. Cliff Hughes is going to
managed the Jamaican economy.
give us some snippets of Mark Golding's speech.
It is something that we in media and
Chaps Media, big up.
should seriously look at. Yes? Look at how they have managed the economy or not over the last 8, 9, 10 years. And draw your conclusions. And I see where the opposition leader, being aware that, listen, the management of the economy has been a strong suit of the Holness administration, is attacking that now. And that's how we're going to begin this morning, because the opposition leader says the Holness administration has been an abysmal failure, in managing the economy, and in particular, him as the minister with responsibility for the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. According to Mark Golding, yes, with the recent contraction in the economy.
Now, make a reason about that for a second. Mark Golding, who was a part of the PMP government of the 90s, that saw the collapse of our entire financial sector, that presided over 18 years of economic stagnation, provided over the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, is saying that this economy built by Andrew, Nigel, and the team is a failure. But yet the economy that cost us 40,000 jobs, that saw a 400% increase in murder, that saw the indiscipline on our road, saw the indiscipline in our society, had Jamaicans being exiled, running out of them country, analyzing themselves. He said that was a success. But this one we have now, that is paying all our bills, recovering from one of the wickedest pandemic the world has ever seen, without laying off a single public sector worker, without being in any balance of payment crisis. He says this one is the failure, because guess what? Because he doesn't have this one to fuel taxpayers' money in his pocket.
Jamaica's economy is weak and struggling after the Prime Minister's tenure as Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Here is my curious report.
The opposition leader is taking Prime Minister Andrew Holness to task over his handling of the economy. Mark Golding points to the sharp slowdown in economic activity and criticizes the Prime Minister's recent attempt to shift direction. This despite the establishment and management of a so-called Ministry of Economic Growth for nearly a decade.
We have a government that has suddenly decided that it's time to pivot to growth. But this is the same government that established a Ministry of Economic Growth. We've had a ministry called Economic Growth for 9 years. And who is in charge of that ministry? The Prime Minister himself, Andrew Holness. And it's a mental failure. So much so that in 2024, we had negative growth. And we had negative growth not only because of Beryl, but before Beryl, for the months leading up to it, the economy has been getting slower and slower.
The Jamaican economy shrank by 3.5% in the July to September quarter of 2024, following flat 0.2% growth in the previous quarter. To address this apparent stagnation, Prime Minister Andrew Holness unveiled a new growth initiative called Aspire Jamaica in November. According to Holness, Aspire Jamaica marks a fresh chapter in the nation's drive for meaningful development, claiming the initiative will break the cycle of weak economic growth. However, Golding, addressing comrades in East Rural St. Andrew, boldly stated that when the PNP assumes office, it will inherit a severely underperforming economy.
The tax revenues of the country are down this year. When we form government, we're not going into a nice, buoyant situation. We're going into a situation where the Labour Party has dropped the ball and the economy is weak and is just struggling along. But we understand what it takes to build a strong economy so our people can be wealthy, our people can reach their hopes and dreams.
It's important to note, however, that according to the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, tax revenues for the fiscal year 2024-2025 were revised upward from an original forecast of $899 billion to $905 billion as at October.
You see, I've said this every day, that Mark Golding have absolutely no respect for not only the people of Jamaica, but for the people who blindly support the People's National Party. No respect. Because if he did, he would not find it so easy to go on the political platform and lie to them. You go on the political platform and you tell the people tax revenue was down for this year, when it is a simple Googleable thing. If he proves a lie, you tell. But he doesn't believe that the people that he speak to is capable of simply using Google. Them are idiot and I can't tell them anything and they will believe me. A simple thing as using Google, he does not think his supporters are able to do it. And then prove it every day, you know. Because you hear them on TikTok, boy, Marky G said this and Marky G said that. The reporter, I am glad, was able to correct it right away.
This upward revision suggests that rather than declining, tax revenues have exceeded expectations so far this year. Golding didn't stop there. He also slammed the government for neglecting the country's road infrastructure until very recently.
Here, our Prime Minister said we have an emergency in the country because of road. Why we have a problem with road? We have a problem with road because the government has not been attending to the issue of roads. They have done nothing to maintain the road network. They like the big projects because they can pop and scrape dollars off it for them and their cronies. But the roads where the people of Jamaica have to drive on every day, them men are done with those roads. And others suffer because of the lack of attention and care of this uncaring government.
On December 30, the government kickstarted the $45 billion Spark program, marking the beginning of a significant infrastructure push. It's one of the largest investments in Jamaica's roadways in recent history. Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Well, first, a couple of things. Mr. Golding needs to pay detail and attention to facts.
What are the clip you? Say that again.
Revenues have not declined.
What are the clip you? Say that again. I want clip you to say that again.
Yes, that's not true. To facts. Tax revenues have not.
It's in Jamaica's roadways.
I want clip say that part again.
Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Well, first, a couple of things.
Tap up the screen for me, people. Tap up the screen.
Needs to pay
Okay, I believe so. You know, it's 10,000 here.
facts. Tax revenues have not declined. That's simply not true. Yes, that's not true. The second thing is, he made a very, very important point, you know.
Mark Golding need to pay attention to facts. I said earlier that for 2025, we are not going to debate facts with anybody. And click using right is a fact. Tax revenue to the government for 2024 has surpassed expectation. That's an opinion, that's a facts.
A line of attack that I think bears or merits a response from the government. The opposition leader is saying that the government has deliberately gone for big projects, multi-billion-dollar projects, so that they can scrape them and their cronies can scrape. Can you tell us how that would work, Mr. Golding? What do you mean that by they will scrape from these big projects? Huh? How? And I know some people are saying, directly stay. But if the opposition leader feels it important to raise this from a public platform, he has a parliament that he can use to really probe this matter and interrogate it. What's the evidence that he has to back up that point? That the government has deliberately.
None whatsoever. But it goes to what I am saying. He has so little respect for his supporters that he can just say anything and they will lap it up.
And for big multi-billion-dollar projects so that they can scrape them and their cronies can scrape. Scrape what? How? Mr. Golding should tell us. After the break, you'll hear the Minister of Finance, Favor Williams, responding this morning on Nationwide. After the break.
Time brought to you. Sorry, no,
Let me raise it up to get back. I want us to hear
In the
Favor.
July to September quarter of 2024. Now that followed a flat zero in that. Well, the debate over the management of the economy went a step further this morning with the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Favor Williams,
Favor warming up.
saying that the economy has been resilient despite the recent declines in economic growth. She said the economy shrank by 3.5 percentage points in the July to September quarter of 2024. Now that followed a flat 0.2% growth in the previous quarter, April to June 2024. And I see where some people are saying the economy is in recession. It's not in recession. According to economic
Somebody tag Ralston Hyman for me there, please. Somebody tag Ralston Hyman.
theorists, an economy is in recession after 2 consecutive quarters of decline. We have not had that yet. That has not happened yet. Certainly we don't know the figures yet for the last quarter of September to December. Right? So, Minister Williams was asked about the opposition leader's assertion that the economy is weak and struggling. And she disagreed. Minister Williams, in the first clip, first story. Yes, she disagrees.
I would say resilient. We have come out of COVID that really took the bottom out of the economy, but we saw where we were able to recover quickly. And that is one of the hallmark of this economy and the reforms that have been put in place. Yes, we go through these cycles, whether they're natural disaster or health disaster, but the important thing is our ability to recover in a short period of time, and that speaks to resilience in our fiscal affairs, resilience in terms of our markets, businesses, if you look at our monetary affairs, those are all in order. Monetary meaning the Bank of Jamaica. So I would characterize us as being able to weather the various storms and come out of those and look forward to better growth.
So she's essentially saying that, listen, the economy is strong, resilient. They have moved it to a place where we can pay our bills without having to borrow, despite the shock of Beryl in July. And some people may not be aware, but people of my age group, yes, who have stayed here in Jamaica for all of our lives, except when we go abroad to study or, but we stay here. We stayed here. And it is a fact. We who lived through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, it is a fact. We are seeing a Jamaica that was hit by a hurricane, that was hit by a pandemic, that virtually gutted 10% of the economy. And we
You see, more somebody listen and understand what Cliffy just say. And I'm gonna use that now to show how dangerous the PMP is. COVID that shut down the world for 2 years caused us 10% of our economy, our GDP, 10%. The PNP, without any outside help, cost Jamaica 40%. The PNP was more deadly to Jamaica than COVID. I mean, I say that because of politics. I say it because it's facts. The PNP and Mark Golding through FinSac was more deadly to Jamaica than COVID.
Jamaica didn't collapse. That is an achievement. If it were another time, we would have to borrow money, go cap in hand to borrow money to pay our bills. We would have had massive layoffs from the public sector. And let me tell you, no matter how you spin and try to project otherwise from the political platform, that is a fact. The economy today is stronger than it has been for the last 30 years. So, I look forward to that debate that is on. Who are the better managers of the economy today? Well, according to Minister Williams, in the next financial year, the government intends to focus on the micro-business sector as a way of stimulating growth.
There are some things that we have on the calendar. For one, we're expecting to bring legislation to...
Yeah, politics and sport, I agree with you. Yeah, we have to go try. We have to get these things like these out there more, man. But it is if we consider it, if we consider it, I will consider it fair and honest, is that COVID and Beryl combined would have cost us, as Cliff said, 10% of our economy, 10% of our GDP. The PMP, with no external shock whatsoever, and we lose 40% under them. All right, Doc, we're going to talk. Right? But 40%. Oh, news time, you know?
Significant.
Hold on. Yeah. News about me, I miss it. But it's not the news, you know. It's not the news, Bridget. It's from today. Me, I forget, could I go on and play some of the news, but I know the news.
USD 1 billion or more to invest in the Jamaican economy. Come on in. We have a number of incentives that we will be rolling out. These will be very transparent through the laws, through this amendment and the public service. He would have spoken about that. The legislative process just took a little bit longer than we wanted, but we are at that point now where I think we will soon be in Parliament with that bill, and we're looking for great things from that. One of the other areas to which I am putting a lot of attention, and you would have heard businesses complain about this for a while, is access to financing.
Yes.
We have done a pretty good job in terms of having an environment.
Hey, I want to listen to this plan for Fiverr. Listen to this plan. This is going to be a game changer.
In which we have a robust financial sector, and that includes not just banks and brokerage companies, but the stock market as well. If you recall, the junior market was pioneered some time ago, and that has been successful.
Hugely successful.
We want to go a little deeper to look at the micro market. Now, smaller companies, because, you know, the junior market is 50 million to and above that can go to the junior market. We want to look at smaller companies that do need access to the kind of risk capital that banks are not in a position to provide. And we believe that will open a lot of opportunities. When I spoke with the general manager of the stock exchange, she was saying that they've identified some 250 micro and small businesses.
So can you guys imagine now? We saw what Bruce Golding and Ardley Shaw did when they launched the Junior Stock Exchange. Hugely successful. The PMP stopped it when them come in a power and just started back in 2016. Now, imagine the micro stock exchange now. Those are things that regular Jamaicans will be a part of the growth of the country, you know. We can now go up on the stock market and invest in small companies. And as they get better, we get richer. As those companies grow, we get richer because we will be part owners of them. They say over 200 companies they have identified before. Who is it that can challenge this Labour Party administration?
That could be, you know, lined up to take advantage of that, and so get the kind of access to capital and the kind of capital, risk capital that they're looking for. You know, investors who can stay with them for the long haul. Bank to give you a loan, and then, you know, come next month you got to make a payment, and the next month, and so on. So that is occupying my mind as well, as to see how we can build a more robust corporate bond market.
Favour Williams, speaking with George Davis and Tony Thomas this morning. There's an issue that the political class is talking about, whether the budget that is coming in March will be a run-with-it budget in an attempt to win an election. Well, they put it to Minister Williams this morning, and she said she will simply not preside over a so-called run-with-it budget, even though her government is due to contest a general election later this year. The finance minister said the Honest administration will seek to provide more benefits to the Jamaican people while maintaining fiscal prudence.
I continue to say to the Jamaican people, we are a government of fiscal prudence. We will continue to manage the affairs of this country in a way that is sustainable, but at the same time, we're going to be ensuring that we look for avenues of greater growth so that the Jamaican people have more that they can look forward to in in the future, and we will do everything that we can to bring more benefits to the Jamaican people. We are not a run with it government.
So, when I interviewed Dr. Nigel Clark shortly before he left, he said to me that one of the things that his success
Of this country in a way that is sustainable, but at the same time, we're going to be ensuring that we look for avenues of greater growth so that the Jamaican people have more that they can look forward to in the future. And we will do everything that we can to bring more benefit to the Jamaican people. We are not a run with it government.
So, when I interviewed Dr. Nigel Clark,
Again, we are not a run with it government. Not a run. And most of you young people, we use the term run with it government. And it confuses you because you don't know what we're talking about. The run with it comment came after the 2002 election, when the then finance minister Omar Davis and his senior advisor Mark Golding stood on a political platform he was at Meadowbrook High School to be exact, and tell the people of Jamaica, say, listen to me, we spend $10 billion that the country couldn't afford, but we had an election to win, so we had to run with it and we fix it later. Do you know what was the fix later? For dip in your pocket more, for tax the Jamaican people more. Run with it and we fix it later. Them days they done.
shortly before he left, he said to me that one of the things that his successor would have to do, and of course he wouldn't know that it was you at the time, or maybe he did, but he said that one of the things that his successor would have to do was to have the ability to say no when certain requests were made that were not in the medium to long term.
Tap up the screen, my people. Tap up the screen.
Of the country. Are you telling Jamaica today that if you're called upon to open the purse strings to win the election, but doing so may put Project Jamaica in jeopardy, that you will say no?
George, I'm saying to you, we continue to be a government.
Yes, Spice Girl, the very same one.
All the ministers sitting in the cabinet understand that. We do understand the need to win the next election as well. And I believe just deeply in my soul that in our conversations with the Jamaican people, we can call on our performance over the years that we have been in government. Unemployment is at the lowest it's been in the history of at least independent Jamaica. Who would have thought that we would be here at 3+% unemployment in this country? Never in my lifetime I thought that. Right, so more people have access to jobs, more people have jobs. Opportunities are more plentiful now than they've ever been in this country. And so we have that record of achievement that we can go to the Jamaican people with and say, trust us to continue making these inroads, trust us to continue creating an environment for you to do well in this economy. The other party cannot say that.
Them can't say it.
She also told George and Tona that there's no intention of burdening taxpayers with any new taxes come the next budget.
We're working towards that, of course. It's been a hallmark of this administration in terms of not, putting heavy taxation on the backs of Jamaicans. We have looked for every way that we can to reduce that burden. More recently, you saw the reverse income tax credit, where persons and companies, if they filed their reports on time, their employees were entitled to receiving 20,000 back if their income was 3 million or less. So we look for different ways in which we can say to the Jamaican people, we value you, we value the work that you've done here is what your government is doing for you. So we have every intention of continuing to look for ways in which we can continue to help the Jamaican people.
So, Favor Williams here speaking this morning. So there are some takeaways. They will be continuing their efforts to deliver more benefits to the Jamaican people while being fiscally responsible, prudent. That is a promise. That is a message there she's delivering this morning. So when she comes to the Parliament and the Prime Minister does so, we will have a job to do in ensuring that they stick to this, that they don't deliver reckless spending plans that are not sustainable. Yeah? The difference with this administration, I've been saying it, but you know, you have to repeat things. In my time, in my 40 years of looking at national affairs in Jamaica, there's never been an administration on the brink of an election that is able to go to the people, to come to the people and say, this has been our record of performance, of achievement, and this is what we are going to do on top of what we have done, so that you can reap the benefits of the sacrifices you have been making for the last 10, 13 years, beginning from the previous administration. Yeah? This Holness administration is in the best position than any other previous administration since, I would say, 72, 76. It's not easy. And if you listen to Favor Williams, they are looking for ways that they can reduce the cost of living and doing business in Jamaica. And they're going to do that without being careless, like Omar Davis did when he said, listen, I'll never forget that speech at Meadowbrook High School. So listen, I know it wasn't the responsible thing to do, but we had an election to win, so we said, run with it, we fix it after. That's what they did. They ran with it because they had to win the election, and they had to fix it after. Now what Williams is saying and Holness is saying that no, they have the room to do what they can do. And that's why you see what took place in Port Royal yesterday. Yeah? You'll hear more of that after the break.
My hands are steady. Run with it. At whose expense? Right? But no. I step so quick in line. Would you pass? These are the same persons now who presided over that deadly run with it, who are coming back here now to tell us, oh, we have the plan. It was the same Peter Bunting who stood up and cried and said Jamaica crime problem cannot be fixed by the police force alone. Is now coming to tell you, say, boy, me could have do better. You was there. Mark Golden, you were there also. But you could not have done better. You didn't do it. Thanks, Angel. I don't know what I tell you thanks for, you know, but I tell you same way, you know. For one of the many things, you know. Me mean for wish one of the things them what you do. Can't hold it for them, you know. But thank you so much for all of them. Including it, tell me if you go listen to Cliff Hughes. And a long time I call Cliff Hughes on radio, you know, so I don't know. Me's a fan, you know. Right? But those days are behind us. Jamaica is now in a stage of politicians that have to care about Jamaica and the Jamaican people. It's not about sinking off money in your pocket anymore. It is not about running with it. It is not about backdoor deals where you act as the seller, the buyer, and the agent. It's not about while the public sector is on wage freeze, transferring 29 million US dollar of taxpayers' money to your friend. Not about agency fees. It's not about extortion money. Every single dollar of your tax money now is being spent responsibly. And you can see where it is going. We now spend it back a while. And that is why I have never been more proud to ink up my finger now when I did it for Andrew Holness and when I did it for Bruce Golding and when I did it for Edward Siaga and when I did it for Alexander Bustamante. Right? The government that is spending the tax dollars right in front of your eye, $40 billion Sparks program, $5 billion Reach program. Sorry, it's $42 billion Sparks program and $5 billion Reach program without going anywhere capping and to borrow. It's your tax dollars that work. $500 million water projects in Port Royal. We never borrow no money. 7 new vessels for the Coast Guard. We never borrow no money. Over 1,400 vehicles for the Jamaican Constabulary Force. We never borrow no money. 170 new buses for the JUTC. We never borrow no money. 50 new trucks for the Solid Waste Agency. We never borrow no money. The Montego Bay Ring Road. We never borrow no money. The Christiana Legal Highway 2000. We never borrow no money. That is tax dollars being spent. But this is the government they are trying to tell you is so corrupt and is not and is a failure. But the government now that tax the Jamaican people, thank you SJ, largest public sector wage bill increase in the history of Jamaica. We never borrow no money. Never borrow no money. But the government, the party, were taxed the Jamaican people for 16. Let me rephrase that. For 20 out of the last 22 years they were in office. Couldn't buy gas to put in a police vehicle. Couldn't buy tire put on police vehicle. Have the public sector under wage freeze for 10 years. And just a little caveat there. While the public sector was under wage freeze, the Prime Minister at the time, one P.J. Patterson, in collusion with Omar Davis, gave himself a 100% raise and pinned his pension to that of the sitting Prime Minister, while the public sector was under wage freeze. These are the people who come every day and tell us, say, we love poor people and we do things for poor people. While you had the public sector, the nurses, the teachers, the doctors, all right, SJ, remind me, 103%. The nurses, the doctors, the police, the military, the firefighters, the street wardens, everybody in the public sector was under a wage freeze. The Prime Minister gave himself a 103% raise late at night in the Parliament with the assistance of Omar Davis. 103% raise. And then tie his pension to that of the sitting prime minister. To that of the sitting prime. That means that every time the prime minister get a raise, PJ get one too. These are the people who are run behind, the comrade, that them who are run behind. But the man we uno don't like is the man who say free tuition at Harchos NTA, so you can go get a skill where nobody can take from you. No, me can't leave out Marky G, Spice Girl. Me can't leave out Marky G. But let me ask, a question came to mind today. And because as part of the debate them having now is about the, everywhere you go, them are tell about minimum wage. Minimum wage at 15,000, nobody can live on that. Me have three pitney, how me feel live on minimum wage. And I would answer that in saying, if you dep on minimum wage, you shouldn't have three pitney. If you dep on minimum wage, you shouldn't have three pitney. It's not the government breed you 3 times. But the question about minimum wage I want to ask is simple this. I want to know one professional. You know, me, it being a nurse, a carpenter, a mason, one professional. Anybody will know one can tell me. Me want to know one professional that is working minimum wage. One. Just one. Whether you're Tyler. That's even a professional. Even if you're just a laborer upon a construction site. Because a laborer upon a construction site, I work nearly $5,000-6,000 a day, you know. Right? But we need one professional. Somebody who knows of a professional, somebody that is trained, who is working minimum wage. It don't exist. And more I said after this, gentle people. Minimum wage is a last resort. Tap the lie, Angel. Tap the lie. Because you lend me some money what if you buy 2 tires put on the Benz. Mind me forget to pay you back, you know. Oh. Minimum wage, me people, is a guideline to protect people from taking advantage of people. Andrew Holness say, whatever you do, listen to me, people, even if your job is to spread the bed, you can go to Heart and do a course in housekeeping and be certified. And that Heart certificate in housekeeping is one of the most sought after in the world at all resorts. They want them. Some of the persons are even hired before the course is complete. So, minimum wage is not even a debate where sensible people should be having. What sensible people should be discussing is, how do I get myself out of this position? And Andrew Holness, as the Prime Minister, gave us the answer. Yes? You start your life at minimum wage. There you go, Sheikah, but let me ask, and you don't plan to finish it that way? Thank you. Thank you. Simple put. I started my work life at minimum wage too. And you know how much was minimum wage at the time? $150. Yes, when I step into working world, I started working at minimum wage and it was $150. Okay? All right. So minimum wage is just a guideline that says, get yourself out of that bracket when people ask, how me I go get out of this mess and have minimum wage? Andrew Holness asks. Yeah, right there you go, Coffee. Andrew Holness answer the question. Him say, go to heart, get a skill, put a skill in your head. Once the skill is there, no one can take it away from you. Until you go to 150, yes. Till you go to 300 one night time. Yes, I remember all those movements at minimum wage. I remember them. But we have a prime minister who decides to listen to me. We all like to sit here and complain that I be a low skill, low pay job there in Jamaica. We have low paid job because we have low skill and unskilled persons doing them. So in order to change it, we have to get ourselves trained. We have to get ourselves trained.
Chuck, I just want to add to your minimum wage. You know, say, I started working at 3, I think my salary was
some reason he not hear you, But I told me to turn on the phone. Start again.
I started my minimum wage or my work life, I think, at $3,000.
3,000. But you did rich.
And when I talk about that, and you see, when I left Jamaica, before I left Jamaica, I was able to negotiate my salary, my benefits. You hear what me say? Because minimum wage is a starter. It is not somewhere where you go and sit down and get complacent. I have been in organization. I have worked my butt off, and I have been in and them say, oh, she can work, she bright, she this, she that. You understand what I am saying? And that's how you move up. You go in at the workplace and you prove your point.
Simply put. Hola. But let me say this. I have been in that minimum wage position also. I work for minimum wage. And I remember I was working at a place. And yeah, man, she young. Little pitney, Nobody was she foolish, she an old woman. And I've worked at a place where while I was at my minimum wage post, they had some new machine that came in. And I tell myself that, listen to me, you see the machine they had, them me I go work on. So I started to learn everything about them. Right? Whenever somebody was off and they need somebody to do something up there, me gone up, they can do it. You always have people that tell me, say, but you do that for your job. Yeah, but that is the job I wanted. When the time come now and they're looking around the room and say, yo, the man, we are going to run them again, we need somebody. Who was the first person? Me. That's how you do things. You have to go where you need to go, work where you need to work, pull up your foot. Stop sit down and tell me about minimum wage job. Minimum wage is simply a guide, not an end result. Nigger vibe. Nigger vibes, you hearing me?
Yeah, I mean, my name.
Yeah. That's why I come about that you wanted to say something. All right, nigga. So, hold on. Who is that now? Aston Villa said minimum wage is outdated. What that even mean? what that even mean? For your argument to make sense, tell me one country in the world that don't have a minimum wage. Okay, nigga, I see you. Eh? Tell me one for your argument to make sense, Aston Villa. Give me a country in the world that don't have a minimum wage. And again, as we say, no, a minimum wage is simply a guideline. So how can it be outdated? Are you saying that guidelines are outdated? Are you saying that guardrails are outdated? Come on, man. That's why it's hard to have a conversation with someone, you know. It is difficult because some of the time you know, repeat some things in our head and it sound good in our head. But when you put it on paper, it don't look so good. When you come here and type then something, then it look so good. Not even TikTok. Big woman. What is it? Big woman. What her name? Eh? Big woman. Marcia. Morcia. Big woman Morcia. Big woman Morcia going on.
Sure.
Yeah. What are they talking? Let me say, may I hear Morcia first. Morcia? Right, sorry, more. Me, I must say a long time. You have to send back a request. Yes, Travis.
You say something like I find the phone yet. Maybe hit the request button. You know. You say when you say there's something that sound good in their head.
You
And I would
don't
say to you, that's where
actually,
the problem
Travis.
starts. But that's where the
Actually,
problem starts.
that's where it starts.
That's where the problem starts. You know, the problem will start when them put it in a on paper or put it on text. The fact that that sound good in your head
Mm-hmm.
means there's a problem there.
Yeah, it sounds good now. Yeah, man, I think, yeah, man, minimum wage outdated now. Then the question is now, then what do you replace minimum wage with? This is outdated. What is the upgraded version?
We want to hear the answer to that question. I work minimum wage still in about you're gonna say a rich minimum wage that because when I was going to high school,
It
America
was
high school
minimum at the
was.
time.
Huh?
It was minimum at the time.
I think it was 7,400 or something like that.
Yeah, it was minimum at the time.
Something like that.
Right.
That's
Minimum
that's
wage.
an idea, right?
Yeah, what do you that? Right. At minimum wage is simply a guide that says, listen to me, this is where you start out. Minimum wage is paid to unskilled persons. You won't find a nurse working minimum wage. You won't find a doctor working minimum wage. You won't find a
Never,
carpenter working minimum wage.
never. You
Right?
won't.
Not even a laborer on a construction site now work minimum wage.
Mm-mm. And that is the problem, you know, that's when they run with this argument about people can't live on 15,000 people or something. I'm talking about I hear that one day, the ex-man him run out with that same argument and talking about people has 2, 3 kids and minimum wage can't do anything. Excuse me.
Excuse me, yes.
Why do you have 2, 3 kids and still working minimum wage? That don't make no sense.
Why? And that is they are not willing to ask that. Right? It is easier to say it is somebody's fault.
Yeah. You
It is
have to
easy to say,
people have to take account for their actions. We have to take account for your actions. You work minimum wage, that means that you know your budget. You
you
can't
know your
afford two, 3 children. You can't
uh,
afford 2, 3
yeah.
children.
So why have them?
That don't make no sense. Yeah?
See, you can't
And the
have one.
opportunity and instead of complaining and looking for somebody to blame, you are having the opportune time to grow from that. To grow from that. Why not encourage people to go and get certified? You know,
Good
go and
night,
educate themselves. Good night, Angel. What's up, honey bunny?
darling. Whose phone is ringing off the chain? Whose
Not
woman?
mine.
Who wanna look for them? Whose wife is looking for them?
Not my phone.
I am going to excuse you guys for a minute and go call people who must always be answered.
But but Travis, what you're saying, right? I'm gonna give you a perfect example of minimum wage. When you leave school, even though there is a there is a wage bracket for every job. In other words, most
Yeah.
jobs, there's a
hmm
bracket for most jobs. Whether you're a brand new nurse or you're a brand new paramedics, EMT, or you're a brand new
There's a wage scale. It's called a wage
right.
scale.
So it is a base salary or a base pay wage scale for that person, that individual. And so as a brand new person who just left school, you won't get the same pay as a paramedic who's been in the field for even a year, much less the
Yeah.
paramedic who's been in the field for 10 years.
But the problem with Jamaica is that they want to leave school tomorrow and earn the same pay as the paramedics who are working for 10 years.
That's impossible. That would never happen. And so even when okay, a lot of companies, they may be slow bringing up their base pay, and so even when they bring it up, they still can't bring their base pay up to the level where you starting today and you are now working the same pay as a person who's been at the company for 20 years. And so that's what it is. And like you said, Chuck, a lot of these people think that I just finished working, or I just finished art, or I just finished whatever they finish, and they should just go in and get top pay. But like Travis said, that's just the base where you start, and you build yourself up. Go back to school, continue education, and build yourself up to earn more money as you go.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Even.
Evelyn,
Even.
That's have to understand, most of these, that's why most people listen to it.
No, Chuck, man. Something right here.
is that
Chuck, mute your end, Chuck. Mute your end, please. Something
you
right.
know what, Travis, I'm thinking now, am I that annoying too? Like, do I be calling?
Leave it alone, leave it alone.
Why not take your role?
So, you understand, This is the thing where most of the people are running up on the other side. This minimum wage. What about about 15,000, they can't do nothing, they can't buy nothing, and they can't do stuff like this and all these things. So what them not understand, as Chuck already highlighted already to them, minimum wage is a last resort for anybody. That's like most people don't understand it. Everybody thinks minimum wage is just like everybody will get it. Everybody for work feet. No, that's why you have to use education, further yourself, educate yourself. You cannot stay one part of your life. I expect life to be good with you. Anyway, I do anything I do in life, you have to start from one stage to another stage,
That's
And
it.
you listen to these people talk. They must cost minimum wage. You have 3, 4, 5 pitney, and that can't take care of you. Me ask you think, is Andrew Wallace tell you if you have 4 pitney for a 45 man and you can maintain it?
Oh God, it is hard.
Yeah,
And
but
still,
that's a question we have to ask. How did you, all right, let's just say you live and you have a one accident and you end up with one. Okay.
Yikes, Mario, remember?
you're
And
supposed to learn your lesson after your first accident. I'm sorry.
thank you. Then how you end up with the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one, and you're in the same position. And then you have to say, oh, minimum wage is not your problem.
Look at it this way. Look at it this way. In the race of life, minimum wage is a starting point. Please explain to me how you're 40 years old and still at the starting line. I don't get it.
But Travis,
You have not making one stride in the race yet, You're
but you know,
still at the starting point.
but you know what, Travis? When Triple D, Triple Z was talking the other day, he mentioned and he said, "Can the average Jamaican who have 3 kids live off such and such?" And I keep saying this again. Why are you putting it on an average person who have 3? Again, I didn't tell you to have the amount of children you have and the family that you choose to have. When you have a family, and I expect you, Travi, and you, Chuck, and all the men that are on here, or even the woman too, when you have family, you provide for your family, you do whatever it takes to plan and to prepare and to provide for this family. Why are you putting this family on the government?
I mean, it is not on the government. If you have 1 child and you're struggling, and you have 2 child and you're still in the same position, and you
Sorry,
now have
AJ,
3 and you're still in the same position, are you kidding me?
AJ, Let me respond to Nigel Vibe. Nigel Vibe said the problem with minimum wage is that the corporation profits are booming and minimum wage remains stagnant. But how many Nigel Vibes? That is not the problem. How many persons in any given corporation is working minimum wage?
Exactly.
How many persons? It has
Exactly.
nothing to do with corporate profit. Most of these companies are paying people way above minimum wage.
If I may
But
respond, if I may
thank you.
respond,
Yeah.
I believe that broad brush will not fit in this unique situation. It's too complex. Because, yes, some companies are booming in profit, but not all companies. And understand that minimum wage, $15,000 is the benchmark straight across the board for those who are booming in profit and for those who are not booming in profit. And if you make it unfair to those who are and measure it off of just who are booming, then those who aren't booming right now or yet will die in the fight. You're gonna kill them before they get to that point of booming. So that broad brush does not fit in this complex situation. I understand what you're saying, though, that companies, when they find that their profits are skyrocketing and is booming, they should be actively be raising their pay rate to keep their staff happy. I agree with such a statement. But to say that minimum wage have to raise because some people are bloom, what about the others that is coming up? That's my question to that part of speech. One size
All right.
don't fit all in this situation. Right this morning, but I think it was George Davis and his co-host I was on, and I was listening to the finance minister on there who was answering the question about run with it. That's what
Yeah,
I was.
and that's what.
But give it. But
So
you
I
raised
think
that,
you
and I
were
have to look
listening
into it.
in the beginning. Yeah. So
Right
what
in the
happened
early
is
morning. In the
that
early morning.
right. So Cliff starts at 10 a.m. guys, and so Cliff heard the conversation, and Cliff took on the conversation and came back at him, and he made a couple statements, and so Cliff even also have the finance minister a couple things on that she said. And so it was a good conversation this morning. If you guys didn't listen to it, check it out. I'm gonna crop some of it and actually make a video on my page because I thought it was a good conversation.
I need to listen to it. Shika, you know, update me. What go on? I need to listen to it. I'll take your word for it, Angela. We need it. Truck it have a video can play it, man.
But when I remember this, everything that the Prime Minister said, any minister right now, said, okay, is an election thing. You have to remember that.
So my question is, given that the
Yeah,
election has come, Jamaica's progress should be paused.
We're 7 years old.
that's a question I want to ask you too,
I
because,
need to ask this question.
but
Should Jamaica stop progressing because it's an election year? I really need to ask this question.
all right, what most people have said, when it comes to election with both sides, I must say, when it comes to election, you hear the most promise. But it's not about it. That's what Cliff you say. It must give Andrew Holness government. They call it long. They crap because guess what? They are the one who said things and let it happen. Because it matter about even Steve Williams about the plan what them have for the next fiscal. Yeah, and he must say, boy, it's a good plan. And he must say, all the way happen. And Holness government is the best government he ever see in the last 20 years. Because the things them that what they have done and happen in front of all our eyes. But it's what I'm saying now. Remember, the Labour Party, when it comes to social media, TV, and the whole RGR system, remember say, them beat down JLP on everything that they are doing because they are a big part of the next party and that can prove in many ways. So whatever the Labour Party said they're going to do, they're going to put it out and make it look like, say, it's an election thing. They are putting forward to run with. So
I
that's
hear
it.
Chuck. I'm sorry. I hear Chuck playing the video. Chuck, can
Yes,
you
I'm
play
gonna
it,
play. I'm gonna
please?
add it over now. So you
Thank you,
can.
darling. Play it.
So come talk to me. Yeah?
By the way, Cliff send challenge any comrade if you can't tell him otherwise.
Now present of Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness and the Honorable Matthew Samuta's presentation at the Port Royal Pipeline Replacement Project. This is brought to you by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Delano Williams. Allow me to acknowledge the Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness, and of course, Member of Parliament for the area, Philip Baldwin. I see our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Arlene Williams, and of course, Chairman of the Board of the Water Commission, Mr. Michael Shaw, along with other board members. Of course, Acting President Kevin Carr and his senior team, and of course, senior team of the ministry. Allow me to also acknowledge colleague and friend, Senator Abka Fitzhenley. Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. In 2023, we were at this location for the groundbreaking ceremony for the Port Royal Pipeline Replacement Project. Today, we gather here with great pride and anticipation to commission the new pipelines officially. This is evidence, as the chairman said, of a waterific day, because it is representative of a promise made and a promise kept. It marks a significant milestone in our ongoing journey to improve the lives of our citizens, fortify our infrastructure, and secure a sustainable future for our communities. With its rich history and vibrant community, Port Royal holds a special place in Jamaica's cultural and economic fabric. However, for years, the aged cast iron pipelines that served this area presented persistent challenges, frequent breaks, unreliable water supply, and environmental risks hindering the growth and development of this unique township. I can tell you also, Prime Minister, it provided reason for persons like Miss Anne from Port Royal to call the office almost weekly to complain. So it is with great pride that we're able to say today that this issue is indeed at an end. Now that issue is to be contemplated against the backdrop that there is work to be done in the township of Port Royal and not just the main line which feeds this township. And we acknowledge that work in the same way we acknowledge the work that is to come on our sewage system, which will indeed serve the 2,500 residents and de-risk future investment, which I know the Prime Minister has on his agenda for Port Royal. But what is this project? This project is the replacement of 8.6 kilometers of fragile pipelines with modern, durable, high-density polyethylene HDPE pipes. This upgrade was not just about changing infrastructure, it was about improving the quality of life. It represents the closure of phase 2 of this project, which saw $533 million, Prime Minister, invested in the people of Port Royal, in the people of Harbourview, and in the people of Shooters Hill. You see, sometimes people don't recognize that water is indeed clear and water goes across constituency lines, Prime Minister. So this line actually started running from the source at, forgetting the name, Long Mountain Source, and comes all the way into Port Royal. So it is a massive investment in the present and in the future of this beautiful town. But it represents a continuation of significant investment that is being made in the Kingston and St. Andrew metropolitan area. And Councillor, I saw a recent note from His Worship the Mayor. And I think it's important that those who are here and those who will listen on the radio stations which are present and certainly see the news coverage later, that they understand exactly where we are in Kingston and St. Andrew and where we're not. May I express some concerns to me about Kingston and St. Andrew's water supply, and I think it's important to advise him and to advise the country, and indeed all the residents of Kingston and St. Andrew and its environs, exactly where we are where we're not, but where we will be in short order. The first contemplation is that in 2015, we required 55 million gallons of water in Kingston and St. Andrew to service your daily needs. 55 million gallons. Work with me on the math. Today, you require 37 million gallons per day. 37 million gallons per day. So 17 million gallons saved because of the work and investment of this government into the water network of Kingston and St. Andrew. So, Prime Minister, when you contemplate all of the high-rises, all of the development, all of the significant investment that has gone into Kingston and St. Andrew, we're using significantly less water. In fact, we have moved from what we call non-revenue water which is leaked or stolen, from being at 70 to 72% to being at approximately 38% in Kingston and St. Andrew. So what that means is that Kingston and St. Andrew is significantly more water resilient. It is significant to being able to supply every water in excess of 23, which is a global standard for best practice. So we've already moved a very far way, but we're not finished yet. Resilience is an interesting topic, and I mentioned water resilience. It's important when we consider that resilience that we understand that in 2022, in February, in the worst month, the worst drought that Kingston and St. Andrew has ever experienced, because of the work we were short 12 million gallons per day, MP. We will start the second phase, because the first phase with all of the site preparation and all of the designs and all of the equipment that needs to be ordered is finished. We will start the second phase this month with heavy construction of the content production facility, which is a Rio Cobra water treatment plant, having signed the financial, having had the consortium sign their financial arrangements last month. Now that will provide to Kingston and St. Andrew and Portmore some 15 million gallons daily. So let's go back at the math. In the worst of our drought, we were short 12 million gallons in the corporate area extending into Portmore. That water treatment plant will supply 15 million gallons daily in and out of drought, correct, President? Now, that is a massive investment in the present and the future for the people of Portmore and Kingston and St. Andrew. And that needs to be understood. Now, that can't be the last investment. There are several components that need to ensure that whether you live at the tip of Port Royal or you live at the peak of Blue Mountain or you live at any of our towns in the hills or you live in any of our urban spaces, that you have water, because we have committed to our citizens that you'll have water. So investments in this area will not stop with the $533 million which we commissioned today. The next round of investments include some critical transmission mains. Some I know that would affect even the Prime Minister's constituency. Starting next month, we will we will start the work on the second phase of bringing to life those lines along the Washington Boulevard, which will move from Sandy Gully Bridge all the way up to Malines Road, Prime Minister. Now, this will significantly improve water delivery to constituencies like West Central St. Andrew, and indeed like Northwest St. Andrew, and will impact water delivery for 30,000 Jamaicans. And $100 million to bring that line up to speed, Prime Minister, for the drought, which we know starts in February. We will ensure that there is far greater level of resilience in that water supply. We expect to, over the next 2 years, commence construction and complete construction on a line from Ferry to Rock Pond. This will see an investment of over $1 billion Jamaican dollars, which will deal with communities such as Duane Park and all of those communities going up the left-hand side of the Washington Boulevard. 30,000 people, again, will benefit from those lines. Now, one that has completed procurement and we expect to start construction soon will indeed be the Forest Hills line. So that will deal with pretty much all of Forest Hills and Red Hills, which we know for anyone who has a family member living in Red Hills or lives in Red Hills themselves, Red Hills has had water challenges for all of my lifetime. This will be a major change in the water supply for all persons living in Red Hills. And Prime Minister, these are not investments that are to come. These are investments that are at varying stages of being programmed. varying stages of implementation. So we know the lines have been spoken about for 10 years. We know the lines of Port Royal were spoken about for decades. Well, we are here to say to citizens of Port Royal, Kingston and St. Andrew, we're not just speaking at this point. We're at the stage of implementation, and though we have already brought down the water usage and significantly improved your water supply, we are now targeting resilience. We are now investing to ensure that Portmore, Kingston, and St. Andrew, all the way through Bull Bay into eastern St. Thomas, rather western St. Thomas politically, is water resilient. And we are nearing this space. We can see that within 2 to 3 years, it is achievable with the investments that we are to make. Now, that doesn't mean that every single community would have all their issues dealt with. There is an issue with aging communities. Many of your old schemes built in the 60s and 70s have not had their pipes upgraded. There are 2 programs I wish to bring to your attention. One, many of those communities also have road degradation, which the Prime Minister is addressing through the Spark program. As a component of the Spark program, $5 billion Jamaican dollars has been allocated for upgrade of pipe work within the communities along the roads that will be upgraded. The Water Commission has a list from NWA. We're coordinating very closely, and we're ensuring that before those roads are paved, we relay the pipes to make sure that the age-old comment of road paved and NWC dig up is a thing of the past. That's the first one. We've identified roads and we're testing the pipelines to see which ones need to be changed as a matter of priority. The other element is that we have already completed the first phase of our procurement for a national non-revenue water park. Now, I mentioned the fact that we've done non-revenue water work in Kingston, and we brought our water usage from 55 million gallons down to 37 million gallons. We are going to do the same nationally. And this will involve significant upgrades of our distribution network right across the country. Now, that will be a 10-year program. But we've completed the pre-qualification of our bidders, and we are going through our international tender procedures to ensure we are able to conclude the transaction period and get started. That will significantly benefit communities like Denham Town, which have significant leakage, communities like Arnett Gardens, where the pipes are aged and need to be changed. But we're doing the work, and we can assure that under this government, MP Paulwell, we will achieve water resilience for the corporate area. Now, it's not that I can't go into dozens and dozens and dozens of other projects that we will be bringing on stream over the next couple of months, Prime Minister. But we'll save the rest of the country for when we go to those commissioning ceremonies, because everybody deserves their pound of flesh. So, for instance, when I ask you next week, and I hope you're able to accommodate us to go and commission the system at Pepper for that community that has never had water, I hope you will be able to come with us, because we are doing this water sort of investment right across the length and breadth in every nook and cranny of Jamaica. But today is about the 2,500 residents of Port Royal. It is about the citizens of Harbourview and Shooters Hill who have also benefited. It is us saying to us that you can believe when we tell you we will invest, because you have the evidence right in front of your eyes, and most importantly, you have the water in your pipes. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's most fitting then that we make way for our keynote speaker and your Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Please make him welcome. Please resume your seat. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for your masterful mastery of the ceremony so far. Allow me to especially acknowledge your Minister of Water, Senator the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Mrs. Arlene Williams, very hard-working Permanent Secretary. Philip Powell did not acknowledge me as his friend. But we have been friends for a long time. We consider ourselves to be political batchmates. We came into the politics almost at the same time. Of course, we had different fates. But how are you, my dear? But we have remained very, very good friends. It's important to say this because sometimes the view of a country is that the politics is so caustic and toxic that it would appear that we are all enemies. And that is far, 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 far from the truth. I certainly don't carry enmity with me in politics. And I treat everyone not just professionally, but friendly. And I think it's important that that be said.
Me hate them for your pain. No worry yourself.
Because I was a few days ago with MP Paulwell at another event launching another government project. And when I returned home and had an opportunity to check my phone, I saw several messages of persons complaining as to why it is that I am launching a major project such as the Spark project in MP Paulwell's constituency. Why couldn't it be one of the other, 48 or 49 constituencies? And I reflected upon that. And especially since I'm here today now doing another project, there might be a feeling that there is some special provisions for MP Paul. Far, far from it. It is all coincidental. But I will use this opportunity to make another point. That when it comes to the expenditure of public resources, we try desperately not to look at the politics of the expenditure, but rather to look at the benefit of the people. And right across Jamaica, you could close your eyes and just randomly pick an area. And that area would genuinely be in need.
Judith,
Whether it is
it will get to us.
or road, or housing, or sewage, or something. Wherever you go in Jamaica, there is the need. So the selection of this constituency, it's purely based upon the technical advice, the professional advice, and where the project has really reached the level of completion. So on the Spark program, it was purely technical. It was the road that was available, didn't require the laying of pipes, easy surface to be dealt with, close to where the contractor is already mobilized, purely technical. And for this project, the project is completed. So we are here to launch the completion ceremony of the project to acknowledge that the government has made a significant investment, over 530 million Jamaican dollars, in putting in new water mains in the town of Port Royal. And I want to just specifically explain what we have done here. We have laid approximately 8.6 kilometers of modern, high-density polyethylene pipes. Now, it's very important that we have an appreciation for what this is. It is not that there were pipes in Port Royal, but those pipes were laid very close. I meant that as a joke. No, the point to be made is these pipes were laid maybe 60 to 70 years ago. And so they are old. But not just that, the diameter of the pipes that were laid, they were very small diameter pipes, so they couldn't carry the volume of water that is necessary. And having been laid for so long, the internal carriage area of the pipes would have become encrusted. And so the pipes themselves would have gotten smaller. So the people of Port Royal were literally suffering from aged infrastructure. And this aged infrastructure simply could not carry the volume of water. It couldn't take the pressure of the water, and they would break frequently. What we have done is to change the kind of pipe that we have put in place. So it's no longer the old metal pipes that could become rusted and encrusted. No. What we have laid now are high density polyethylene pipes, which are very robust, a little bit more flexible, and they are designed to last much longer than the old metal pipes. These pipes can take the pressure of the pumped water supply to the area, and a larger capacity as well. So there will be more water for Port Royal. This was done at the cost of approximately 533 million Jamaican dollars, and over 2,000 residents of this area, not to mention the persons who visit here on a weekend and the possible cruise ship visitors. They will all have the convenience of potable water. So this is a major achievement that the government is marking by this ceremony. And I'm certain that the people of Port Royal are very happy, very, very happy to have this improved facility. Indeed, they mark it as an improvement in the quality of life that they experience. But let me quickly go to the end of my presentation, where I have a list of projects that Minister Samuda said he would spare you. He would spare you the reading into the record of them. But I believe it is important for us to note these projects because, you know, there is a sense sometimes that when I go around the country and I do these ceremonies, whether it is handing over houses or breaking ground or marking the completion, there are persons who are watching on the television and on social media, and they're saying to themselves, when will it be my turn? You know, there's a Prime Minister, I see you in Port Royal, I see you over in Harbour Heights, and I see you all over, but when is it my time, my turn in my community? Ultimately, you know, our politics comes down to what have you done for me in my community lately? And especially in this time, and you know what time I'm talking about. Everyone wants to be able to identify what has been done for me. Now, there are those who would look at this and say, you know, this is incredibly selfish and a threat to our democracy if politics is only going to be decided on the basis of what is done for me. Then what happens to the national good? But you know what? It is the nature of democracy. And it is not just Jamaican democracy. It is the nature of the electorate. And because at the end of the day, you know, you feel the pain. And this issue of the national good, sometimes it's very difficult to identify the national good with your own personal struggles and suffering. And so governments have to be very sensitive in balancing as we pursue what is in the national interest and what is in the national good. We also have to acknowledge that people have to live now. And as we have been very good as a government in pursuing the national good, we have also been very good as a government in just trying to balance the daily lives of citizens.
Please feel free. It is the reality of government. It is, and I acknowledge that. But governments have to do it very carefully because, and if I were to use this community as an example, I used to come here quite regularly when I had fishing as a hobby. And, you know, I would stop and I would have fish, and some of the fish that I caught, they would be prepared here. And some of the conversations were very interesting because, you know, it's not just water that was a challenge. Housing is a big challenge here. Major, major challenge. You know, and I could go on and on. I know the area very well. I know what the challenges are here. But that we have spent $533 million here. The residents who are the beneficiary of that, they are not going to contemplate where else we didn't spend the $533 million. In other words, the residents who benefit from the opportunity are not going to consider the cost to others of the opportunity to spend the money here. That's just the nature of politics, right? So the job of the government is, when we are spending the resources to meet your individual and personal need, we also have to balance what does it cost for others whose needs are not met. Because that $533 million could have been spent in a community in Northeast Manchester. It could have been spent in my constituency, all over Jamaica. So that the role of the government, my friends, is to try as best as possible to meet the needs of the people, their individual needs, what they see in front of them, but also to spend in such a way that in the expenditure, we increase the capacity and capability of the government to gain even further revenue to meet the needs of those persons who did not benefit from the expenditure that we made here. So we have to be very strategic. So you might be asking the question then, why Port Royal? Why did we spend it here? Clearly there is a need. But Port Royal is also very strategic. Very strategic. Very special, I agree. Very special. But Port Royal is also very strategic. So a few years ago, when we were looking at how do we increase the productivity of the country, or put it another way, how do we create new industries for growth, Port Royal was high on the agenda because you have certain heritage assets here that have been for decades, maybe centuries, underutilized, but if properly developed, could provide the revenues that would not only develop Port Royal, but develop the wider Jamaica. But to get to that point, we have to make certain investments in Port Royal. And one of the critical investments to be made was to put in place the facilities. We have that investment. One investment was to put in place some facilities to receive the cruise ship visitors when they come. And we have put in place the new pier and customs facilities there. It's a lovely facility. We have built a new museum and restaurant, which I will be back here to open shortly. Yes. That need to do some improvements. Here's the things we need to talk. Investment. And now we have made this massive investment again in the water. We have one more major investment to do, which is on way already, and that is in the sewage. We have actually built the sewage plant. Now we have to lay the pipe to connect the homes and the facilities to that treatment plant. And another major investment to come, which is to give you a beautiful road from the roundabout straight into the town.
And then change the member of parliament. That is the next investment.
Now, all of this investment that is coming here, it is to create Port Royal as a new destination, not just for tourists to come, but to enhance what is already the case. Port Royal is the destination for people in Kingston and St. Andrew. On the weekends, the place is packed. It is an entertainment and festival destination. But to be able to have that to the extent where it adds significantly to our GDP, you will hear this term used, gross domestic product. We have to make these significant investments. So you're going to see now, once you put in the sewage and fix the...
Howard, with all due respect, leave and let me tell you too bad word here.
which I gather is doing quite well. It's the Excelsior. You're going to see more hotels come. You're going to see the restaurants improve. And we are going to make the investments, not to displace the people who are here, who have built an industrial name and a brand, but to support them further in improving and expanding their product. So that when we talk about Royal as a destination now, this is going to be the place where people will choose to come and have their festivals and concerts, where cruise ships will come to explore the rich history that is here in your various museums. Even cemeteries are a place where people come to visit. We have such wealth of historical sites that we can develop. So Port Royal is going to become a new economic hub for Kingston. It will add to our GDP. It will create revenues which will more than pay back for the over $2 billion worth of investment that we have made when you add up everything together.
Look for me there, I can't get two
And it will
roads.
last us, it will give us a 20, 30, 40-year run of revenues from which we now can use to give water to people in other areas of Jamaica. So that is the strategy of the government. So I want you to, persons listening to me speak and saying, well, how Port Royal get and we don't get. You are going to get, my friend. And the government has been wise in how we spend. We are spending in a fiscally responsible way, in a sustainable way, in a strategic way. And no one can say that sustainable Port Royal will not yield results for the country. But having said that, I wanted to commend the NWC for being good stewards of the public resources and being able to make these kinds of investment. And I commend them because the history of the NWC is that they have not been able to make these kinds of investment in a sustained way. But more than that, they have not been able to make these kinds of investments without government support or borrowing. I want to emphasize that. Everybody wants the government to do everything, which is right. That's why you have governments. You put them there and you give them the authority to to be able to treat with the situations that you have. But the responsibility of the citizen and the electorate does not stop there. How does the government provide
have none.
for you? There are some people who really don't care as long as it's provided. But we have seen, and it has become a destructive element of our history, that if you provide development through borrowing, you one, limit the potential of the development, not just in the long term, but in the short term, and you end up paying more for the development than you would have. And worst of all, you end up burdening future generations to pay for your consumption today. This government is committed to develop Jamaica without depending on borrowing. That commitment depends on a wise electorate. That commitment depends on a wise electorate. Jamaica can easily go back to the point where we are an indebted country. And these facilities that we are now launching and opening and showing off about, they stop. In fact, the reason why we are in the position we are in is because we tried to develop by borrowing. We must now turn the leaf in that book of our history and go to a new chapter where we develop by growing. And so the investment in Port Royal is that strategy, to develop by growing. That is what we're doing. The NWC has followed that policy mandate. And the growing requires effective management of public resources.
Bless up,
And
chat.
the NWC has improved its management significantly. And I want to commend the Board of Governors and the management of the NWC. They still have a way to go, but we must acknowledge when progress has been made. The NWC has not come to the government for any fiscal support for a little while. I know there are some challenges with it.
I wonder if you don't hear that. I wonder if you don't hear what the PM just said. The National Water Commission has not come to the government cap in hand, say we need some money. Any PMP supporter know what that mean?
With the new remuneration package, and during COVID, you may have had to come for some support, but not because of bad management. And not because of bad management. The economists would say exogenous shocks, things outside of your control. But even then, we have the Lower Jacksonville Water Supply Project, which serves Harriman, Tavistock, Whitcomb, Mountain Spring, and Sunset Avenue. And that is in progress. We are expecting to complete that by April 2025. That is an investment of 350 million Jamaican dollars, another community that is benefiting. But we didn't borrow to do this. This is being done out of the NWC's revenues. And I want to emphasize that. In St. Anne, in the St. Anne Spade to Landover pipeline, we are making good progress. In fact, we are well advanced. We expect to complete that in May 2025, and that's $550 million worth of expenditure. That one is another strategic investment, because that pipeline is going to open up great opportunities for housing along that corridor, meaning more revenues coming in to the government. Not more taxes now, but more revenues from the existing tax base that we can spend and other communities. See the strategy? You're investing to grow the economy, to increase revenue so we can spend on your individual needs. This is out of the NWC's revenues. We have Rosemount, Camelot, and Discovery Bay in St. Anne. I'm wondering why St. Anne is coming up so often. Hotels. Okay, good, good. And in December, this we expect to be finished December this year. That's $350 million again out of the NWC's revenues. Plumbago, Orchid Park, sewer extension works in Mona, and I see that that is going on, expected to complete that in March 2025, $75 million out of the NWC's revenues. That is not from government support through any taxes or from any borrowing. That's strictly from the good management of the NWC to generate the revenues to make these investments. And we have some upcoming water supply projects in Eastern St. Mary. We're going to make an investment here in the St. Mary water supply project. That's $600 million. In Port Moran, Springfield, the Stanton water supply investment of $550 million. I believe the one in St. Mary is already complete or almost complete. In Juno Crescent, that's in Clarendon, in Maypen, we are going to make an investment here, which I believe is a start. It's $375 million. Again, all of this is out of the NWC's revenue. In Grovestown to Cross Keys Pipeline in South Manchester, $75 million out of the NWC's revenues. From Wakefield to Bunkers Hill in Trelawney, $120 million. I believe that project is ongoing. And then we have the Montgomery Corner to National Hero Circus Pipeline via Morosco Road, $400 million. That should start this year. Ferry to Rock Pond Water Supply in Forest Hill, you mentioned that. That's a $1 billion project. And I know the people up in Red Hills and Forest Hill and all of those areas who have been complaining all along about your water supply, they'll be very happy to hear that this project, the minister is advising that the procurement is finished, so the next stage is contracting and then execution. And then another important one that needs to be done, Mona, Wellington Drive, Monroe Road, Old Oak Road, Retreat Avenue, Seymour Avenue. We're going to put in place a proper sewer system for that entire area. That is 1.4 billion Jamaican dollars out of the NWC's revenues.
Who did know say the NWC could have reached a stage where they can fund all these projects out of their revenue? This was unheard of during the PMP's time. Unheard of.
Not borrowing, not from government, not from your taxes, but just from the operations of the NWC. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have detained you long enough. And I believe that my point has been made to you, that you have a good government, a government that understands the delicate balance that has to be maintained with the national interest and with your personal interest. And it requires skillful, thoughtful government to be able to balance those needs, to deal with the needs of the future while addressing the needs of the current, and to address the needs of the current without in any way damaging the possibilities of the future. So, Madam Councillor, it's good to be in your area, and I'm sure that you, though we are on opposite sides, but I'm sure that the message, I see the smile on your face, and I'm sure that the message has resonated with you.
What the? Who's ringing a bell?
Yeah, yeah, they bell what up rig.
What the? Okay, so look, let me say this because I gotta go. But hold on. I just want to say thank you, Chuck, for bringing me into this space, letting me understand where Jamaica was, where we are now, and who is the better party and the best person to run this country. Oh, if I love Andrew Holness one more time, I forgot divorce the husband. I mean, I think stuff. I
No,
love him.
trouble Zion.